Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, do I actually know what joy feels like without escaping my life first? For years, I thought freedom looked like Friday night drinks, letting loose, shutting my brain off, and finally feeling like I could breathe. I thought alcohol helped me become the real version of myself. But what if the things we use to feel alive are actually helping us avoid what's underneath? In today's episode, I'm opening up about my relationship with alcohol, survival mode, emotional intensity, and the realization that I had connected joy to numbing for most of my adult life. We're talking about childhood conditioning, trauma, identity shifts, parenting through addiction, and mental health struggles, and what happens when you finally decide to stop escaping yourself and start healing instead. I'll also share the moment I realized I had spent most of my life surviving and how learning to find joy in ordinary moments completely changed the way I see myself and my purpose. And if you've ever felt like you're carrying invisible baggage like every day, I want you to stay until the end because I'm going to talk about the intersection point that changes everything. This is Turn the Lens Inward. I'm Lisa Taylor. Let's get into today's episode. It's Friday night. How are we going to celebrate this week of showing up, doing all the things? Oh my gosh, it's been such a hard week. I need a drink. Does this sound familiar? This is pretty much my entire adult life. I think I started drinking regularly at 18 years old. I found it. It was my escape. It was how I really stepped into the version of who Lisa Taylor is. When I was drinking, there wasn't a care in the world. There was freedom and fun. That sense of warmth, comfort. Man, did I need the comfort. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because I do not drink like I used to drink. And that's a more recent thing. I'm going to say maybe in the last 5 years, it's changed. A lot of it changed because how do you be the parent who supports your kid and wants them to not drink and do drugs and all the harm and the destruction that goes along with that at whatever level they're at? And then you sit there and you'll have a bottle of wine, or you'll go out with your friends and have a few drinks after baseball. Oh my gosh. How much money I have put into buying alcohol in my life. I would like to get that back, but I can't. So this reflection time right now is coming because I've been doing an extra level of work on myself. This podcast has definitely helped with that. Talking so openly and vulnerably to everybody really has opened up uh, a new level of growth and healing that I didn't know was possible. So, walking every morning as I do, and I have these epiphanies. I think everything is a sign. And lately, my earphones they're wired. I don't use Bluetooth. I only use wired. Must have read somewhere that it was bad for you. I try to cut out as many bad things as possible that I can control. The wires aren't working. It keeps turning on and turning off Spotify on my phone. So I've had a lot more opportunity to take my walks in silence. And the other day I had this huge realization about joy. And that the majority of my life, I have had alcohol equate to joy for me. I've always just thought, okay, this is your personality. You're a really intense person. But what if that isn't the case? What if I'm not intense because it's my personality? What if it was more of a, this is how you learned to be uh, situation? And when I think about how I grew up and how my parents were and what my life looked like, I was very solitary, very alone as a kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. Maybe that's because we moved at a pivotal time in my life. We were in the downtown Toronto area, in on what they call the Danforth, and we moved to Scarborough. My parents bought a home, and we I started at a brand new school in grade 2. So 7 years old, you might think that's a good time to start, but I didn't I was not I can't remember a lot of before the move. I can't remember I don't even remember grade 1 at all. I had one friend, and we were basically friends because our mothers became friends, picking us up from school. And so we would hang out together, and she was a friend of mine till probably around, I'm gonna say, like, 14 or 15 years old, but I didn't have a lot of friends, and I can't recall going to school. There's very fuzzy kind of memories, but not real concrete memories. But I remember everything from grade 2 on, because that's when we moved, and that's when I started my new life. I didn't have friends. I'm gonna maybe preface that. I had friends at school. I did not have friends outside of school. Once we went home, it was just, "You're at home. Do your homework. Be with my brother." We had a babysitter until I was, like, 12. So we would go to the babysitters and watch TV or play sports or whatever it is, and I just have always been an observer. I've I have a very analytical mind, and I just watched a lot of stuff and didn't participate necessarily. In school, I was always on the sports teams, basketball, volleyball, track and field. I participated in everything. You could say that I was there, but I don't know how there I really was. And maybe you're relating to some of the stuff that I'm telling you. Quick interruption. 92% of you aren't subscribed. And I just want to say I really appreciate you being here. If you'd hit follow or subscribe, it genuinely helps more than you think. That's what grows a podcast and gets it in front of the parents who need it most. Okay, let's get back to it. So when I was 16, I think I went to my very first house party, and there was drinking there. And I had a few sips of cherry brandy because I didn't like beer and I didn't like hard alcohol. But I did like the cherry brandy, and I liked how it made me feel. I only went to a few parties up until 18. So I've always said that I was the perfect kid up until 18. Very sheltered, very secure. My father didn't want me to go to the community center after school and hang out. He kind of frightened me around that concept about there might be strangers there or men who might talk to you, and here's how you can react if they do. So I just kind of chose not to do those things and stay at home. We're safe and secure. My brother was in hockey, so we would go to the hockey rink. We did things as a family. We were a foursome. We were not from Canada. My parents moved here when they got married. Both my brother and I are Canadian born, but we didn't have family. There's, like, barely any family around us. So, eventually my grandmother and grandfather moved here when we had moved to Scarborough. I don't know even what time, that happened, but it did. So we were a foursome of a family. And when I turned 18, I felt like I could just do whatever I wanted to. That's when I went to university. That's when I got my own place. That's when I started having boyfriends. I had never even dated up until I was 19 years old, to be honest. And going to parties the summer before university was when I really discovered drinking. And I'm not gonna say that I have a substance problem. I'm not gonna say that I couldn't go a day without drinking because I absolutely could. Maybe functioning drinker. I don't know how to define it or if I need to be honest. But what I do know is I felt like life was tolerable into the drunker I would get, the more I would allow myself to just be me. And I didn't have a filter. I didn't understand social cues. Emotional intelligence was not there because it's not how I had grown up. And I would say things, and people are like, oh my gosh, you can't say that, or you're so blunt, or I would completely wake up the next day from drinking and really not remember majority of the evening and not really have any guilt over that or shame, to be honest, and carry on. And I've had a lot of success in my life. I see myself as intelligent, hard worker, um, lots of opportunity before me, risk taker, taking it. But alcohol has always been there. And it really has been a way for me to get out of my intense personality and experience joy. So when my daughter was going through all of the issues she went through after her mental health diagnosis, after her car accident and the brain injury, there were a lot of reasons that she told herself why drinking or doing drugs was acceptable or normal. It was normal for her. And I didn't really have much pushback because when you think about it, it really is normalized, isn't it? When you go to a restaurant, what's the first thing they ask you? Oh, what can I get you to drink? There's alcohol in stores now, in grocery stores, in convenience stores. There's marijuana shops on every corner in the area that I live in. I think there's only region one city in my region that said no to having marijuana, shops. It's just so prevalent, and it's normal. Do you know a person who's never had trauma? Do you know a person who's never gone through anything hard? Probably not that we know of. I think everybody has. I think that's a normal assumption nowadays is just, hey, people go through hard stuff. So when we are dealing with trauma in our life, drugs, alcohol, it's a way to escape it. And I've really been starting to understand this. And so when my daughter was going through all the things, and I said to myself, hey, how can you be the mom that wants her to not drink or do drugs, but you drink and smoke marijuana? Because I did. And so that was really when I became cognizant of my actions being emulated by my daughter. And that was another whole rabbit hole. But there's nothing that I could do to go back and change it, but there was something that I could do in the present to change it. So I did stop drinking and stopped doing marijuana and worked on myself. I mean, this is turn the lens inward. That's the whole story is that I did a lot of work on myself and that trickled down to my daughter starting to want to do stuff for herself. I recently was on a podcast of a woman who went through some serious major problems with her son being an addict and in jail, and what she told herself was she was just surviving in life and that she was gonna become the mama that thrived, and that really, really resonated with me when we were on our interview because that's what I did, but I didn't consciously recognize that I was trying to get out of survival mode and into thriving mode. So ultimately, here, what I'm saying is, do you pay attention to what makes you feel alive? Have you broken it down? Because drinking or smoking pot, weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, that made me feel alive. It really turned on some activation in my brain. It allowed me to honestly, like, calm down, let go of all of the baggage before I would wake up in the morning and put it back on. And I think that's what the intent of alcohol and drugs is just to help you to let loose. Why is it so acceptable by society? That I don't understand, but it is. It's something that we all do. And I had to find other ways to make me feel alive. I started doing, the whole getting into nature thing. I've talked about this in previous podcasts. Started taking care of my body better in more ways than I already had than just exercising or playing on a sports team. Intentional exercise, intentional drinking water, getting to bed on time, staying away from processed foods, getting more into whole foods, just really self-care. And in that alone time that I had with myself, it wasn't focusing on numbing out, it was focusing on looking for joy, looking for joy in the little things. Sitting, watching nature, waves, listening to birds, really being cognizant of what is making me feel alive? The other thing that I kind of have really gone back to about being a kid and joy and not having very many memories. There's pictures that show me doing lots of things, but I don't recall them. Is because I don't think I was actually being joyful. I think I was playing along. Okay, we're going to go skating. Okay, we're going to go to a restaurant. I remember the Ponderosa. I don't know if you guys remember that, but we used to go all the time. And it's something that I looked forward to. But was it really joy? So, in reflection right now, I'm starting to understand that joy was something that I had to earn. It was a reward. Oh, we did this, so now we get to go have some fun. W And life really, really, really for me, there was a lot of the hard stuff, the buckling down, being serious, not joking around. Of course, our environment growing up is going to be the reason that we are how we are, and we carry through in our adult life what we learned when we were kids. So mine never really ever ended. It was always very serious, very responsible. My ex-husband and I, we were hard workers. We achieved things. We got things. He worked very hard. I worked very hard. And Friday was let loose. Saturday, let looser. Sunday was either recovery or, hey, let's do it again. And Monday to Thursday, There might be have a drink with dinner or have a beer after baseball. There was always, always, always alcohol involved in our entire life. And so when I think back, where really was the joy? I don't think I had any. And that's pretty sad for me to now recognize. But like I said, over the last 5 years, I've searched for joy that is just in the every regular, mundane kind of day stuff. And I think it's allowed me to appreciate those things, the flowers, the trees, the animals, having a walk with a friend, having a vacation with my daughter. Those kind of things that I get to do now, I have a lot more gratitude and appreciation for. So, really, what I've been going through is an identity shift late in life. You could call it midlife crisis. Maybe that's where the name came from. And again, I've alluded to this before. I think everything that happens in our life, good or bad, happens on purpose. And the bad things that I personally have gone through over the last decade with my daughter's struggles and my struggles, I think it all was on purpose so that I could get to the point where I now see and look back and am able to continue to grow and improve and change and create that new identity and shift it into something where I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of how I show up. And there is a big shift in the consciousness of people everywhere to do this. I think social media, things like being able to watch podcasts now versus just listen to them, podcasts in general, for everyone to be able to step up and have a voice and shine and share what it is that you've gone through in order to help another person who might be going through it. There's this huge demographic of people who are doing this now. And you're a person who's consuming and maybe also producing this type of content. And are you doing it because you think of it as a means to an ends to make some money? Or are you doing it because your identity is shifting and you really want to make an impact in the world? You are here for a purpose. You're here to do something amazing and you're going for it. So these three concepts of like paying attention to what makes you feel alive, stop believing that joy is something that has to be earned or can only be achieved when you're numbing out on a substance, or it could be another type of addiction. It could be shopping, it could be gambling. It's that one thing that you do when you take yourself out of who you are and you set the baggage down for a little bit and then you go back and pick it up later. And then the last idea of having an identity shift and reinventing yourself. I think we can always constantly reinvent ourselves. And there are some people who probably feel like you're failing when you shift who it is you want to be, but I don't see it as a failure. I don't look at it as something bad. I look at it as you're just taking the time to find your soul, to find your purpose, to find who it is you are and what it is you're here to do in this world that is so natural. You don't require a substance, or you don't require a paycheck, or you don't require somebody making you clock in or clock out. It's something that you want to do always. And it makes your heart open, and it makes you smile, and it makes you feel like you're flying, or whatever the feeling is for you. And the people who are judging maybe you or somebody like you who's doing these things, they're just doing it because they haven't had the realization yet. They want to look outside of themselves versus inside of themselves. When the person reaches a point where they can turn that lens inward and really take a look at who they are, it requires bravery, it requires courage, it requires resilience. It means that they may have reached a point in their life that the problem is bigger and harder to deal with their life as it is now versus the challenge of doing this work. There comes an intersection point, and that's what somebody struggling with addiction comes to, or somebody dealing with their mental health issues and isn't accepting the help comes to. It's that intersection point of, I no longer want to be here. I'm going to push and find the courage to come on to the other side and do that work. And that's really what I'm here to try to help serve people who are at that intersection point or going through it with a loved one, to support you and bring you the hope and encourage you to continue on, forge ahead. The end result is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's release, it's freedom, it's joy, and all natural. So that is the episode for today. I hope that it brings you some clarity. And if you want to send a message or comment, please do. Let's start conversation like this. Let's encourage our fellow humans to make the changes required so that they can have the same experience. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a lovely day.